Again, this is part two of the listing presentation. We're talking about the actual action plan. And for those of you that missed part one and you don't have the script, go ahead and email me at coachbobfitzgerald@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to make sure you get the audio and the beginning of the listing presentation right through the pricing. Now, as we talk about the action plan, I want you to write down these four things. At first glance, you're going to think, well, a lot of the stuff we're going to do is fairly basic. A lot of the things that we're going to do, other agents will do as well. There's not a lot of differences between our action plan and the next guy's action plan. So there are real four distinctives that I want you to write down before I go through the points that we'd actually take a seller through as to how we get a home sold. First thing I want you to write down is this: having an action plan. Go ahead and write down having an action plan is different 50% of the time. Having an action plan is going to separate you or cause you to look different at least half the time. In most cases, having an action plan is going to set you apart because other agents just don't have one. If they have one, they don't talk about it and they don't go over it. They don't discuss it. They don't, bring the seller up to speed as to all the things that are involved in getting a home sold. So even if your action plan is exactly like, somebody else's action plan, well, just remember the chances of you competing with that other person, is rare. So first of all, just having an action plan is going to have value in the eyes of a customer. Now, go ahead and write down number two: presenting with intensity. Presenting with intensity is going to be another area of distinction. First of all, to be able to have a list of all the things that you do to get a home sold, well, that's an advantage in itself, but then be able to present that list with a level of intensity. One agent can kind of read through it or maybe glance at it or talk a bit about it, where we want you to be able to present it with intensity. We want you to have a level of authority, a level of conviction, a level of enthusiasm. That's what intensity is. It's speaking with authority. It's speaking with conviction. It's speaking with enthusiasm. So instead of just talking about the fact that we're going to list the home in the multiple listing service, we have a level of authority and conviction about, the aspects of the multiple listing service that are going to serve them. And we're enthusiastic about the things that we can do to separate the property within the thousands of homes that are also in the multiple listing service. So having an action plan is a great first step, and then presenting it with a level of intensity or authority makes it even stronger. Go ahead and write down the third thing. The third thing I want you to write down is asking a lot of questions. Go ahead and write down asking a lot of questions, involving the seller in the process, asking them self-discovery questions, asking them, what they're thinking, asking them if that makes sense, asking them if the other agent happened to talk about the importance of this step, asking them if they can see the value of this particular level of aggressiveness, asking them if they understand how important the communication is going to be. Not just presenting, or informing, but actually selling, persuading. And the difference between informative speech and persuasive speech is typically the level of involvement you're able to get from the other party. So, at first glance, just having an action plan is going to be a big step for most of you. Presenting it with intensity, actually making a great presentation, and then asking a lot of questions, before you know it, you're really setting yourself apart. A lot of times people come up to me after a seminar and say, Bob, I've heard a lot of these ideas in the past, but the way you presented them, just seem to really touch me or connect with me. And the reality is I can teach something that somebody else taught. That doesn't mean, I can't add value by teaching it more clearly, with more intensity, and asking self-discovery questions to cause it to be, an application to yourselves personally. And you can do the same thing for them. And the fourth thing I want you to write down is the word execution. Execution. One of the things we have to realize is just because we do the same thing, that doesn't mean we do the same thing the same way. Just because, somebody else has the same step doesn't mean they work as hard at that step as you would. Take a sign call, for example. You get a sign call, and first of all, you've got the right script and dialogue in place to, secure that sign call, to get the information, to get the phone number, to get the cell phone, to get them enthusiastic, to get them excited. You get a sign call, where you return the phone call faster than somebody else. Maybe you follow up a little bit more aggressively than somebody else. Maybe you get them, in touch with your mortgage mortgage company a little bit more diligently than somebody else. Maybe you've got a better mortgage company to do the pre-qualifying than the next guy. I mean, you can take something as simple as a sign call and look at the difference between one agent who doesn't have time to return the call, where that sign call is just laying on the desk somewhere, and another agent who's really taken a proactive approach to get in touch with those people, add value to those people, be aggressive with those people and offer the services to those people that might cause that buyer to actually get in the car and look at a home like the one you have listed. So the bottom line is, I want you to recognize as we go through some of these points that in the worst case scenario, you're just more committed, to doing a better job than the next guy, and that's going to have value to the seller. So don't sit back and look for something that's rocket science. Don't look for something that's Nobel Prize worthy as far as what we do to get a home sold. Look for the fact that you are organized enough to show people what's involved, that you are intense enough that they actually see the value. You're asking enough questions so that they can make application, and you're committed enough to do the job at a higher level, even if somebody else has the same list. So kind of keep those things as we go through some of these points. And again, I want to give you a flavor for what we're doing here. Email me at coachbobfitzgerald@gmail.com, and I'll actually give you the written words, the print. And then, of course, as anything, understand what we're doing, understand the message we're delivering, and then you can put it into your own words and make it yours. One other distinction I want to draw is this. I want you to notice my action plan is not about advertising. It's not about marketing. It's not about mailings. It's not about creating websites. It's not about staging properties. It's not about things that cost me a lot of money. What you need to realize is if you're getting a lot of listings in, today's market, and you are using techniques from, yesteryear in order to get those listings, you might be putting yourself out of business because you're going to go broke. When you take a listing on Friday and it sells by Tuesday, it doesn't matter how much advertising or promotion, how many open houses you promised to do. The reality is the home is selling quickly and it doesn't matter, and people aren't asking questions. But when you got a home on the market 100 days, and it's not selling because it's a bit overpriced to begin with, and you've generated all the momentum around why they should list with you because of your marketing and your advertising and your homes and land magazines and your mail, approaches and your websites and the fact that you're staging the property. Well, you're just going to have to do more of that. That's what they're going to want more of. If they listed with you because of all the things you do and the home is not selling, they're going to want you to do more of the reasons or more of the things they listed with, and that's going to cost more and more money. And there's a lot of agents who get listings because of a fancy marketing and advertising, approach on a listing presentation, but they can't handle more than a handful of listings at a time without going broke because they're on the market so much longer, and those things really don't sell homes. So, have a flavor of some of those things if you like, but notice I'm not promising open houses. I'm not promising advertising. I'm not talking about the value of mailings. I'm not doing a lot of promotion. We're going to focus on the things that we actually do that work. And remember this, people buy what you're selling. If they bought you and you were selling your marketing, then that's what they bought into, you and your marketing. If they buy you and they're buying into your communication, then they're buying into you again and the communication or the proactive approach you take to get homes sold. So here's what ours looks like. I'm going to pick up from point number 11 in the actual action plan script, or the listing presentation script. And I've just come off the heels of a pricing conversation. I've had to convince the seller that they need to be $199, not $225. We've talked about how important that is. We've come to that agreement, and now I go into what we're going to take to get the home sold. So listen, John, literally, with only one home out of every 6 homes selling per month, the odds are stacked against us, aren't they? Now, the best marketplace in the country right now is Toronto, and that's on the slide. There's a 6-month supply of inventory, which means, literally only one home in 6 is actually selling at a month-to-month level. I used Richmond, Virginia as an example earlier this morning. There's a 10-month supply of inventory. In Atlanta, there's a 20-month supply of inventory. So if I'm in Atlanta and I say, listen, John, literally with only one home out of every 20 homes that's listed actually selling on a month-to-month basis, the odds are stacked against us, aren't they? And I really want to show them that listing the home isn't enough. Just because you put it in the MLS doesn't mean it's going to sell. You've got 19, other homes in MLS for the one that sells, if you're in a place like Atlanta. So literally only 1 out of every 6 homes selling each month, the odds are definitely stacked against us, aren't they? And then I go ahead to say, well, there was a time when simply putting the home in the multiple listing service would cause it to sell. But in today's market, we need to be very proactive if we expect the home to sell. Let me show you what we do in a market like this to actually ensure that you don't just list the home, but actually sell it. So there's my preempt into the action plan. Only one out of X number are going to sell per month. There was a time all they needed was to list the home, but now they need a proactive approach. Let me show you what's involved in getting your home sold. Number one, we're going to list your home. You're going to list your property with the local multiple listing service. Now, I might ask the seller, are you familiar with the multiple listing service? Do you know how that works? And then the bullet point says, well, within 24 hours, every real estate agent in the greater Toronto area, including all the Markham realtors, will have access to all the information about your home to share with their potential buyers. Now listen, John, 95% of the potential buyers are already working with an agent searching for a home. So based on the price we looked at and the fact that we've listed in the top 5, this may create an immediate sale. So if the home sells quickly, will that present a problem for you and your family? And then we shut up. Now, I want you to just make a couple of notes underneath number 1. They're not in the listing presentation, but if you wanted to expand that a little bit more, there's a few things that you could look at, even with just the MLS. First of all, the number of photographs, that you actually have. I might say, listen, in Markham right now, in a particular price range, there might be 45 homes for sale. So I could say, listen, John, if there are 45 homes for sale, as we've looked at earlier, and a real estate agent's working with a buyer in the price range and they want to show 6 or 7 homes over the weekend, well, how are they going to choose which 6 or 7 homes to look at? With 45 different choices, every advantage we can bring to your property as they scroll through the multiple listing service is going to bring up the likelihood of them actually choosing to show your home. So the first thing that we can do is we can make sure that we've got a full complement, of 18 individual photographs so that real estate broker can look at how beautiful the home is from the inside and from the outside. The more they're able to see, the more comfortable they are actually choosing it to be one of the 6 or 7 properties they show their buyer. Okay, so for example, the number of photographs that you use can be a distinction or an advantage if you explain how that benefits the seller. I wrote down B, the pricing strategy. The pricing strategy, and this is a very legitimate thing. Instead of listing the property at $299.9, if you list the property at $298.5, you're going to go to the first page of the search instead of the 12th page of the search. So you might talk about a pricing strategy. And then again, as I ask questions, I might talk to, the seller about the fact that, based on now you see how valuable the pricing strategy can be, simply changing the price point brings us onto the second page of the search grid. Did any of the other agents you interview talk about the pricing strategy as it relates to maximizing showing in the MLS? Well, no, none of them even mentioned it. Well, we're really just getting started, but I want you to notice there are several things that we'll do that other agents won't even mention, all to try to give you a competitive advantage. Why? Because there are 47 other homes for sale, and as we looked at earlier, only 5 or 6 of them are going to sell each month. So the pricing strategy, listing the home at the right price point, is going to cause showing activity to increase, and it will. By the time you get down to the $299.9, $299.9, $299.9, you're basically glancing because you're on page 12 by now of, the homes that you're looking at to try to set up appointments to show. You're not even paying attention anymore. Go ahead and write down comments and remarks. Again, with brokers trying to narrow down their search from 45 to the 7 or 8 they're going to show, making sure that the remarks, are quality. And the comments that we make are those that are going to encourage showing activity. I wrote down follow-up with brokers that call. This is a part of the execution side. Number 4, execution, remember? Follow-up with brokers that call. John, one of the things that you might appreciate is how aggressive I was in order to get this appointment. I think I had to follow up with you 3 or 4 times before you were ready. And at the time that might have annoyed you, but what I want you to realize is when a broker calls to get information about one of our listings, if we don't get back in touch with that broker immediately, follow up with them 4 or 5 times if we can't touch base with them, make sure to make a contact so I can sell the features and benefits of the property and talk about some of the upgrades that you've put into the property, then we might lose a chance to actually have them show it to their potential buyer. Because again, John, with 45 properties to look at, and only 7 or 8 homes they want to show this weekend. Again, it could be the tenacity of my follow-up calls to make sure I touch base with that broker to convince them, that yours is one of the homes they should show that causes it to actually be shown and ultimately to sell. And then I wrote down finally access, access, making the home easy to show. Whether it's on Lockbox or how easy we make it for brokers to set up an appointment, how diligent we are in making sure that that happens. And I might talk about the fact that as a broker, if I'm following up with a bunch of, listing agents to try to set up showings for Saturday afternoon, there's 45 homes I can show it. I'm only going to spend a few hours showing 6 to 10 of them. Well, if I don't get a call back fast enough from a broker whose listing I'm trying to set up an appointment with, hey, I've already got 10 set up. I don't even need to show that property anymore. And again, in most cases, if you're prospecting, you've proven that you've got a very proactive approach. Now, listen, group, I'm trying to make it simple, and you have to look at just number one here. The number of photographs, the pricing strategy, the comments, the follow-up with the brokers, the access of showing or the ease that we're able to get it shown. These are the reasons why a home sells. Not because it's got 12 websites built around it that no one will ever look at because they don't come to yours either. We're talking about things that we really do, and that's why we're able to have more confidence. So number one, we're going to list the home with the multiple listing service. Within 24 hours, 90% of the buyers will have access to the property. Because of our pricing strategy we just spoke about, we're in the top 5 homes. This could create an immediate sale, and if it doesn't, these 5 areas are areas that we really maximize the potential showings. Number 2, I wrote down, promote your home to the top 50 real estate agents and mark them. Obviously there'll be blanks for you to fill in the number of agents and the actual city. And I just simply wrote down, John, with so many homes for sale, and I'm going to continue to come back to the size of the inventory, I need to frame each point from the standpoint of there's far more homes for sale than there are buyers for these homes. And there's major competition, to get these buyers into these properties because there are so many. So, John, with so many homes for sale, I need to continually promote your home to the top 50 agents and mark them. What this is going to do, it's going to help us maximize the number of times we're able to get the home shown. And obviously, if we can maximize the number of showings, we're going to be able to maximize the number of buyers, increasing the chance that we get qualified offers. Now, you had mentioned when you had your home listed before, the home was shown quite a bit in the beginning, but then the showings tailed off, for most of the listing period. Oh, yeah, we never heard from anybody after about the first 3 or 4 weeks. Well, do you think maybe your broker gave up on, the work that was involved in making sure brokers see that property? Hey, listen, we can't sell a home if we don't get it shown. We're going to promote that listing, your listing, to the top 50 brokers and mark them. We're going to do that continually. There are so many homes for sale that I need to make sure the best agents don't forget to show your property every time they have a buyer in the price range. And John, we're going to do that until it's sold. And again, that's just a simple point, but it's something that's important. You might say, well, how are you going to do that? I could do it via email. I could network with these brokers. You say, well, who are the top 50 brokers? Whoever you want them to be. It's not very difficult for you to figure out, who's working with a lot of the buyers or who are the types of people you want to have access to your properties. I wrote down number 3. We're going to expose your home to the sales and marketing team at our company. Now, I was a Century 21 agent at first, so I'm going to use Century 21 just as an example. Obviously, I'm not partial. We've got great agents with a lot of different companies. But John, next thing we're doing is going to expose your home to our sales and marketing team here at Century 21. As you can see, I wrote down, and again, I say, as you can see, I wrote down because this is on my letterhead in front of them. And that's why if you email me and I send you the listing presentation, you can change the wordings, change the bullet points, add the specific stuff, and put it on your letterhead. And then you can say, I wrote down, and you can read it. You don't have to memorize it. John, as you can see, I wrote down, our office works as a team of aggressive agents. And what that means is this: we work together to get our listings sold. Century 21 agents are known nationwide as top producing real estate agents in the industry. And quite frankly, our Markham office is no exception. Now listen, here's where you start talking about your company. Obviously, if I was a big company like Century 21 or Remax or, Sutton Group or Royal LePage, Hometown and Richmond, I'd start talking about our market share. I would talk about our relocation division. I would talk about the number of referral sources we have nationwide. I might talk about, the name recognition. There's a lot of different things that your company does, that's already prepackaged. In fact, there's more prepackaged material about why your company is great than you know what to do with. But this is an opportunity to say, hey, listen, we work as a team to get these listings sold. We're not individuals, especially if you're a newer agent, you don't have a big track record. And then the last thing I would put, is, our office sold 137 homes in the last 30 days. Take your office production and talk about it. John, because of the things that we do and the quality of our agents and the number of resources we implement in order to attract buyers, in the last 30 days alone, our office has sold 137 properties. Now listen, that was 137 buyers that purchased 137 listings just like yours. John, if you were a list with us, our team's going to make sure the home sells. And so again, this would be a place where you add a bunch of bullet points about your company. Now, number 4 on that topic, John, we're going to tour your home with our sales and marketing team. We're working with buyers right now and getting our team into your home as quickly as possible. Again, that could create a quick sale. So, John, our tours are every other Wednesday from literally 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Question, and I usually look at the wife, can you have the home ready to be shown by this Wednesday, or should I schedule the tour for the following Wednesday? An assumptive close. And I'm always looking at her because she's the one that needs to make sure that it's clean, the laundry's done. She's usually the one that's going to say yes a little faster than he is. I just talked about how amazing our group was. Now, if you have a caravan or if you do a broker's open or you have a tour, this is where you want to plug that in. So let's say it's a broker's open that you're trying to have. Listen, John, we like to do broker's opens on Wednesday morning. Can you have the home ready by Wednesday, or do we need to schedule the broker's open for next week? Oh, well, we're not really sure we're going to list with you just yet. Well, John, none of the things we do to get a home sold are really going to matter unless I assume that you're going to choose to do the right thing and list with me. So if you listed with me, would you be able to have the home ready by this Wednesday, or should we schedule the broker's open house for next Wednesday? If that's something you're going to do, you can do it right here. Number 5. We're going to expose your property on the World Wide Web. Now listen, the majority of buyers, and again, I'm just reading, the majority of potential buyers are going to begin their search these days online. So then I list all the websites, ourcompany.com, realtor.com, others.com, and .com. We know that, you've got 1 million .coms affiliated with your company. So I'm going to list some of these websites. I'm going to say these particular websites, they attract hundreds of potential buyers every single day. And as the only Century 21 office here in Markham, our office is going to receive all the leads through our Century 21 network. Now, John, what we're going to do is this. As you can see, I wrote down, we're going to quickly qualify these buyers, and then we're going to start by showing them our listings. And again, the majority of buyers moving into Markham are from other areas of the Toronto marketplace. So again, having a company the size of ours gives us access to the pipeline of buyers from all over the greater Toronto area. So this is where you could plug in some of the points, that you have with regards to some of your websites, the activity level, and, find out, and talk a little bit about the fact that most of the buyers are beginning their search now. A lot of you have incredible buyer tools. Some of you, I know because it drives you crazy, have more buyers than you know what to do with. Unfortunately, the majority of them are just looking at properties, getting ready to get going to begin to maybe do something in the spring. So for you to say, hey, listen, our website right now, is facilitating home searches literally, for up to almost 30 different buyers as we speak. And as new listings come up, perhaps yours, it'll attract the attention of somebody that's already looking at property online. Again, it could create a quick sale. And keep bringing them back to the fact that we're trying to sell the home. Number 6, provide additional exposure through our 800 info home line. Now, most of you have an 800 information home line for your listings. You have an 800 number that they can call that captures their name and their phone number so that you can immediately follow up and try to get that listing shown or generate a buyer lead or potentially even a seller lead. If you don't have one, my former boss, Mike Ferry, has the best, in my opinion. It's called the 800 info home line. It's like $45 a month. You get up to 20 listings. You don't have to pay for any of the phone charges. There's no gimmicks behind it like some of the other services. If it weren't the best, I wouldn't have said it. So, if you have a question, then you can call Mike Ferry's office, ask about the 800 info home line. It's a great service. It's a great tool. But more importantly, it's a great source of leads for you. So I wrote down with my bullet points here, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, potential buyers want information immediately. And that's obviously the course of conversation I want to have. A description of the features and benefits of your home is going to be available immediately. Listen, John, well, the buyers are sitting in front of the home. And basically that gives us a chance to grab their attention before they leave. What'll happen is this. As you can see, the system will immediately page me with the name of that potential buyer and their phone number. While they're still sitting there looking at the home, I can call them and set up an appointment to see the home. You can see I wrote down timing is critical. Other agents might have a similar service, but the speed of calling that buyer back, the follow-up required to get them pre-qualified into the home may be the reason your home sells before they call in another listing just up the street. Now, can you see the advantage of an agent, actually being real aggressive in something as simple as handling a sign call? And again, with only one out of every 6 homes actually selling month to month, you think you need every advantage you can get in today's market? Let me show you how this works. And then I dial the 800 Info home line and show them how quickly I get the information on the service. And of course, that adds some other features and benefits that you might want to bullet point here too. I've tried to keep this flexible enough that you can add or subtract some of the things that you do so that this can be customized. But the reality is this. The point I'm trying to make here is not only do we grab their attention immediately, not only do they have immediate access to the information on the home, but I'm immediately triggered who they are, where they're calling from, and before they've pulled out of the driveway or up the street, I can be in touch with those people trying to set up an appointment to show their home. Number 7, provide honest professional advice regarding the marketing of the property. Provide honest professional advice regarding the market. Regarding the market. So I wrote down bullet point. Many agents will tell you what you want to hear instead of the truth. Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what it's going to take to sell the home in today's market. Notice I wrote down it's that simple. Now, John, do you know why an agent might tell you what you want to hear about the price of your home or even cut their commission just to get your listing? And I'm going to shut up because I've asked a question. And once I get their feedback, well, it's real simple. A great listing in a nice neighborhood is going to cause a real estate agent's phone to ring off the hook with potential sign calls or ad calls or even open house leads. These are potential buyers looking for a home. 99% of these buyers, they're not going to purchase the home they call about originally. Typically, they're looking for a home in a different area or a different price range altogether. Now, John, do you know how much of a commission a real estate agent can make if they go ahead and then sell that buyer another home altogether? And then I let them answer. You're right, a full 2.5% or even 3%. So the truth is, an agent can make a lot of money getting buyer calls off their listing inventory, even if they don't sell their listings, or make much of a commission on the listing side at all. Okay, so this is how discount commission companies stay in business. They're not working hard to actually sell their listings. So I'm going to provide honest professional advice regarding the market, regarding the feedback, regarding the situation, regarding the pricing strategy, but you're always going to know my intention is to sell your home, not use your home as an advertisement for me. Fair enough? Great. Number 8, we're going to actively prospect for potential buyers. John, there are 2 ways to find buyers. An agent can sit in the office and wait for a buyer to call them, or they can go out in the field and actually find a buyer. Now, if you understood that only 1 out of every 6 homes that is listed is actually going to sell, which of the 2 approaches do you think would be more powerful? Well, probably go out and find one. Exactly. Well, listen, John, as you can see here, I spend 2 hours every day actively looking for buyers for my listings and homes for my buyers. It's a proactive approach. It's the reason we're so successful at our office in selling homes like yours in this type of market. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, is I'm going to contact my past clients and my centers of influence. I'm going to tell them about your property. I'm contacting private sellers, people that are trying to sell their home on their own, finding out where they're going to go once they've sold their home, looking for potential buyers. I contact the neighbors on streets around my listings, because a lot of times they'll know of somebody who's been looking to move into the neighborhood. We'll contact our database full of leads virtually nonstop, trying to promote the property or the other properties we have listed. We're literally going to spend 2 hours a day generating potential leads until the listing is sold. Can you see how important a proactive approach is going to be? Did any of the other agents that you interview talk about spending time every day networking with their past clients, their centers of influence, private sellers, neighbors, potential leads in the database? Again, John, with only 1 out of every 6 homes selling, we need to give you every advantage possible, don't we? Number 9, as you can see, I wrote down, we're going to pre-qualify all the potential buyers. All the buyers are screened based on their motivation to purchase a home, first of all. We're going to show the property primarily to people that are looking to purchase a home. We're not going to have you have to set up an appointment, get the home ready to show, get the lights on, and actually leave unless that buyer has the potential of purchasing a home. We're also going to make sure they have the financial ability to purchase the home. So we're going to show the home to as many qualified buyers as possible, and that's ultimately going to help us get the highest price. Look what I wrote down number next. Number next, I wrote down communication is the key. John, the single biggest complaint we hear every day is that after the listing, the property, the seller never heard from their agent again. That's really the biggest complaint we see, is that you never heard from the agent after you listed the home. Look what I wrote down. I'm going to communicate all the activities related to the sale of your home on a week-to-week basis. You're going to be able to make decisions with confidence based on conversations about the market, conversations about feedback we get from brokers, feedback we're getting from buyers that have seen the home. We're going to have conversations about our marketing efforts. I'm going to communicate with you every Friday afternoon between 3 and 5, and you're always going to know exactly where your home stands relative to the market. Because we do these calls on Friday afternoons, where will I reach you on Fridays between 3 and 5? John, would I get you at home or would I get you at the office? Well, you'd probably get me at the office. Great. What is your office number then? And as I'm getting the number, guess what? I'm taking the listing. And again, my communication is going to be important. Number 11, negotiate the best possible price. So watch, again, John, in today's market, most of the homes listed for sale do not sell on a month-to-month basis. So negotiation actually starts with strategies designed to get offers from potential buyers to begin with. So the negotiation really begins tonight, especially as we choose the pricing strategy that we discussed earlier. Watch, negotiation then requires a balance between working a buyer up from their original offer price while keeping them interested in your home. See, buyers have a lot of choices, and if your agent isn't experienced in the offer negotiation, a buyer can be lost during the negotiating process itself. So what we need to do is we need to understand they're going to come in low because of the market. They're going to come in thinking they need to get a deal, and our job is to negotiate that sales price higher without losing their interest or tapping into their emotion where they decide just to go ahead and make an offer on the next property. Because again, there are too many properties that work for most buyers. So John, in most cases, the negotiating process alone can impact up to 5% of the home's value. And at this point, it says, give your best example of a winning negotiation. And the most important thing you can do is have an example ready to go or two of a time when you negotiated on a buyer's behalf or a time where you were negotiating on a seller's behalf. Talk to them about the negotiating process, what the buyer did, what the seller did, what you did, what the other broker did. Talk them through the process of you actually winning at the negotiating table because of what you've done. Ask them if they understand how important that's going to be to the bottom line, and then ask them if any of the other brokers they interviewed even discussed the value or the importance of the negotiating process. And again, you can tie that back into commission, because every one of you has gotten a home for a buyer for a lot less than they would have paid, and every one of you has gotten a price way higher than they would have taken. And they've been some serious negotiations that you've been a part of. What is your best example? What's your biggest win? Make sure that you tell them this story right here at that point. Number 12, negotiate the best possible. Number 12 is a typo. Mine says negotiate the best possible price. We already did that. It should say coordinate all the closing activities. So by the time I email it to you, that's what it'll say. And then it says, I'm going to coordinate all the activities required to actually close a real estate transaction. Obviously, this is going to include the follow-up with the closing, the attorneys, the other real estate agents, the mortgage companies, the home inspectors, the surveyors, contractors, pest control professionals. There's just a lot involved once we've gone from the contract to actually making sure that it closes. And then I might even ask, John, have you ever met somebody that actually sold their home, but by the time it closed, the whole deal had fallen apart? Yeah, our job is to make sure that doesn't happen. Look what I wrote down. Aggressive management of all the details is not only going to ensure the transaction closes, but John, it's going to close on time. I don't want to find out that, you've got the U-Haul ordered and packed, ready for the day of closing, and then find out the mortgage didn't fund on time, and you were literally living in the U-Haul for 48 hours until the mortgage finally funded. Our job is to make sure that we dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure that not only do we sell the home, but it actually closes, and it closes on time. How important do you think that'll be to you at that day? And then finally, number 13, we're going to deliver your check at the closing. Now, John, you can see I wrote down this step is the one that really matters, isn't it? Do you believe that I can get your home sold based on everything we've looked at? Well, yeah, probably. Well, listen, I agree. So let me show you how simple this really is. This is a standard Virginia listing agreement. Let me show you what we filled in here, and then I begin an assumptive closing process of simply showing them what I filled in the listing agreement and then asking them to sign the listing agreement, handling some objections if I run into them. So there's a lot of room here for you to add more of what you do, for you to discuss the benefits of what you do, for you to discuss more about your company and then the benefits of those aspects of your company. Notice with each point, when you get the script, that the bullet points are always focused around answering one simple question. How is this point a benefit to you? Okay, as a seller, how do you benefit? What is the advantage? How does it make the transaction smoother? How does it make the price higher? How does it make the showings more abundant? How does it make the exposure maximized? It's always about you. So between the 13 points that I have that are very generic, the filler that you can add with 5 or 6 of those 13 points to begin with, the stuff that you can bring into the conversation because of your great company's material, you literally will have anywhere from 18 to 20 different points, and the benefits to that seller, in terms of hiring you as it relates to those points, it's not difficult to spend another 30 minutes showing somebody what you do. And remember, let me go back to the beginning. Having those 20 points, you're better than most agents who don't have any or don't talk about them anyway. Presenting them with a level of intensity. I was really teaching through this call more so than trying to be intense and do a mock role play, but really getting excited and having conviction about the possibilities in this level. Asking more questions, which is difficult to do when I don't actually have a seller, but asking questions because you're listening, helping them discover the value of the things you do, and then knowing that you'll execute at a higher level, even if the person next door is offering the same action plan, actually getting the job done at the highest level, is going to have value to the seller. So for some of you, the first step is to figure out what do you do when somebody will hire you? What promises do you make? What commitments, are you willing to put forth? And if you do that, again, your confidence is going to grow. So this morning session and this afternoon session was primarily geared towards speaking through or talking you through, the actual listing presentation script. So between the 2 audios and the script itself, you've certainly got a base you can use to developing a strong, powerful listing presentation. So I wish you the best of luck with that. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow at 10:30. And for those that I won't see, make it a great week. Bye-bye.